Good evening and welcome to Dr. Smith Live. It's our 40th episode and really excited. We have two wonderful guests, Dr. Stanley Ngui and Thomas Lodi. So we have a fantastic program for you. It'll be put up on GHS doc.live, our website. My other two hosts will get links for their people. So if you miss it or you want additional information to review, you'll have the information. So anyway, tonight's topic is pretty incredible when you come down to it. Depression. Depression basically, it's a mood disorder in which most people experience feelings of sadness, loneliness, loss of interest for long periods of time. And believe it or not, depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide. And during our pandemic, the COVID-19 lockdown, depression symptoms have increased 3 times. And wonder why. Anyway, the key is if you recognize it, there's many factors that you can take to remediate it. So I'm just going to go over some of the major contributory factors causing depression from my perspective. Chlorine in the water suppresses your thyroid. Same thing with fluoride in the water. And in toothpaste, it blocks the iodine receptors in the thyroid. Bromine in your breads, your hot tubs, and degassing of plastic and car dashboards also suppress your thyroid function. Mercury leaking out of your fillings or mercury from fish, sushi, sashimi, okay? Your perchlorates from the environment inhibit the uptake of iodine. Soy products inhibit thyroxine function. Excess vitamin A and zinc also inhibit thyroxine, and a deficiency of selenium also has the same effect as suppressing thyroid function. Excess intake of polyunsaturated adulterated fats such as safflower oil, sunflowers, cottonseed, canola, soy, or corn block thyroid hormone secretion and its movement in the circulation and response of the tissues to the actual thyroxine hormone. Amino acid deficiency, especially L-tyrosine, which is a direct precursor to thyroxine. Excess copper levels coming from your copper tubing, your plumbing rather in your house. Brain allergies from food, such as chicken, strawberries, peas, or pretty much anything from a food. There's a fantastic book that you may want to look at. It's a read called Brain Allergies by Philpott and Kalita. Talks about brain allergies. Oral infections in the mouth basically drain to your thyroid, can suppress it. Post-extraction sites can have infections in the jawbone that trickle the toxins down to your thyroid. Certain medications, so some drugs such as Accutane that they use for acne, also the antiviral drug infection, interferon alpha, and corticosteroids can increase your risk of depression. Also barbiturates and benzodiazepine. So ask your pharmacist if you got a new prescription, or you can go online and look up the dangerous side effects. Chronic pain will also set you up for depression because who the heck wants to live in pain, and it's not very pleasant. Prolonged exposure to EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, and of course hypothyroidism. There's a whole laundry list. Believe it or not, there's 26 symptoms related to underactive thyroid. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'll hit some of the hot spots, but you can go onto chsdoc.live and get the rest of them. But fatigue, forgetfulness, insomnia, depression, anxiety, panic attack, hoarseness, loss of hair, heart palpitations, cold hands, cold feet, dry skin, muscle spasms, enlarged tongue, scalloping, low pulse. Anyway, so these are just some of the major ones. But like I said, there's 26. So recommend that you can go on and look them up yourself because there's more important information I want to share with you. Though not reported by the mainstream media, there are now numerous studies confirming a link between high amounts of EMFs, radiation exposure, and negative psychiatric problems. An Iranian study followed 103 electricians, dividing them into 5 different groups based on their potential for exposure to extremely low frequency electromagnetic fields. And it was found that the group with the highest exposure also had the highest probability of experiencing feelings of depression, psychosis, obsessive compulsive behavior, hostility, and anxiousness. In 1997, there was a study of 540 adults living near high voltage transmission lines, found that higher doses of EMFs were correlated with symptoms of psychological distress, regardless of anyone's belief systems. There was a study done not too long ago. It involved approximately 139,000 workers in the electric industry, also found a higher incidence of depressive symptoms, in workers who consistently received higher EMF exposure. And in fact, what they showed is that the younger workers with recent exposures in particular were at increased risk of committing suicide. One way that the EMFs are observed to influence the human biochemistry is through what they call active voltage gated calcium channels, called VGCCs. So these channels regulate the amount of calcium taken into multiple types of cells throughout the body. So disruption is delicate intracellular balance of calcium to the other ions wreaks havoc, causing psychological problems. It also, the channels, when they get disrupted, affect your hormone levels and the neuroendocrine system. So these are major potential for causes for depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. If you want more information, go to BioInitiative 2012. It's a fantastic report written by about 40 countries, PhDs, MDs, and scientists. It was updated, I believe, in 2014 and 2020. It's 1,550 pages. It's packed full of hardcore documentation. So reducing your risk factors for the EMFs, you can use diodes on your cell phones to reduce your exposure, Faraday cages placed on your smart meters, routers, and there's even a little soft Faraday cage that literally fits around your iPhone. They have different size Faraday cages for different size phones, but it's a little metal screening in there and helps protect you. Imprinting your eyeglasses with scalar energy. I told Stanley about it. Thomas, this will blow you away. I've literally imprinted scalar energy frequencies into the lenses of your eyeglasses. And if you stand in front of a router and wear the glasses, your muscle strength is like the Rock of Gibraltar. You take the glasses off, the EMFs blow you out. Every person that I've tested worked.
Wow.
So I believe that these frequencies are getting into your central and autonomic nervous system and healing the body from the inside out. It's a mind blower. It's so simple. And you can do it to even sunglasses. You can take regular sunglasses, imprint them with the frequencies, and you can do before and after muscle tests. 100%. 100%.
Well, maybe I should send my glasses to you.
No problem. No problem. Hopefully they won't get lost in the mails. So also wearing the Tesla card, a lot of my patients, are familiar. Stanley is the distributor up in Canada, but this little Tesla energy card that has a magnetic strip on the back, I wear it every day in my pocket. It protects you from EMFs. It's too simple. So again, another neurotransmitter, melatonin, is responsible for regulating our sleep-wake rhythms, and has been established that the EMF exposure suppresses secretion of melatonin in the brain. So people who work in front of the computers for hours a day, you can get blue blockers or the hyperpolarized lenses from Zepter Corporation from Switzerland. Helps to prevent you from reducing your melatonin. Now, basically, I want to go over some nutritional support that you can use. I don't advocate shotgunning and just taking everything that you hear me recommend. You should have a practitioner who can literally test you to see if your body needs these specific remedies. There's a remedy called SAMe, capital SAM-E, and basically it's what they call S-adenosyl L-methionine, and it's a compound made naturally by your body. It helps produce serotonin, melatonin, and dopamine, good neurotransmitters. So the serotonin is very important, and it's a neurotransmitter. So there's much research that suggests that SAMe may have short-term beneficial qualities, However, long-term studies are lacking. And then you'll see this across the board when it comes to nutrition. Well, we don't have enough studies to make definitive statements about it. But from a practical standpoint, uh, most of these things work in a high percentage of cases. The problem, though, the compound can have a variety of side effects, including dry mouth, diarrhea, dizziness, and insomnia. So you have to be careful with some of these natural remedies. The 5-hydroxytryptophan, it's also a chemical that the body makes from L-tryptophan, which is in turkey. So L-tryptophan or tryptophan is a protein building block, and it helps raise your brain serotonin levels. So again, medications can increase serotonin, tend to have ease the symptoms of depression. So melatonin is and unfortunately, fluoride in the drinking water and toothpaste calcify your pineal gland and diminish your melatonin production. Melatonin is also a very, very powerful antioxidant, one of the most powerful ones that your body makes on its own. Omega-3 fatty acids, these essential fats may be good for relieving symptoms of depression. The human body cannot make omega-3s on its own. So a 203 study in European Neuropsychopharmacology found that people who took omega-3 fatty acid supplements had reduced depression symptoms. The key is organic, cold-pressed, plant-based oils. Okay, taking fish oil supplements for depression, forget about it. Based on a research, Dr. Brian S. Peskin in his book, PEO Solutions, and anyone who's interested, I strongly recommend you get it, PEO Solution. Hardcore documentation. Fish oils at room temperature are rancid and will deplete your CoQ10, which can set you up for congestive heart failure. So Dr. Peskin has formulated a plant-based supplement of organic cold-pressed oils, which include flax oil, evening primrose oil, pumpkin seed oil, sunflower oil, and extra virgin coconut oil. It's an 11-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Omega-6 is way more important than omega-3s. And he proved it by hardcore science documentation that your skin has 1,000-to-1 ratio, 1,000-to-1 ratio of 6-to-3 in your skin. Your nervous system has 100-to-1 ratio of 6-to-3. Your organs have a 4-to-1 ratio of 6-to-3. So how can threes be more important than 6 when the ratios show differently? Your B vitamins. Unfortunately, a lot of B vitamins are synthetic fractionated from coal tar. That's what I'm not talking about. Food-based B vitamins, especially the B12 and B6, are particularly significant. They help produce and control chemicals that influence your mood and other brain functions. Low levels of these vitamins are linked to depression. If your levels are low, you can increase your B vitamins through your diet. B-rich foods include meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. As with all supplements, I am a big proponent of testing the energy pattern of every nutrient with the energy pattern of the individual, because it could be the best supplement, B vitamin on the planet, but the energy pattern may not be compatible with the patient at that particular time frame. So anyway, there's a total of 14 drugs are known to interact with B complex vitamins. So the thing is, you have to be careful. I'm supplying the URL. You can look up the specific drugs that are going to create a problem with the B vitamins. Vitamin D, very important. A lot of vitamin D being sold in the stores, guess what? They're radiated lanolin and are toxic to the body. So people with depression tend to have low vitamin D3 levels, but most people in the United States are deficient in vitamin D anyway. Increasing your levels of vitamin D may ease your depression symptoms. You can get vitamin D from certain foods, including milk, sardines, and eggs. Not all vitamin D supplements are equal, and this is really important. Most retail stores, again, they irradiate lanolin, set up for a toxic dose of D. I personally take 10,000 units a day. There's people that take 100,000 units a day, and they have no adverse problems. So symptoms of vitamin D toxicity include weight loss, heart arrhythmias, and excess urination. Again, 10,000 units will keep your levels up. If you have cancer, you better be up around 70 to 100 micrograms or DLs per day. Saffron, very expensive herb, but it's packed full of antioxidant compounds, including carotenoids called crocin and quercetin. Interesting, saffron has promise as a natural treatment for depression. Studies have observed that it increases level of mood-boosting neurotransmitter serotonin in the brain. While it's unknown exactly how this process works, it's thought that saffron inhibits serotonin reuptake, thereby keeping it in the brain longer. So really, really important. In 2013, there was a study in the Journal of Integrative Medicine found that saffron supplements actually improve mood and reduce symptoms of major depressive disorders more than placebos. Saffron is generally very expensive because many plants are needed to make a tiny amount of the spice. Therefore, saffron supplements aren't easy to find and they can be very costly. An analysis of 5 randomized controlled trials found that supplementing with saffron significantly reduced depressive symptoms in adults with mild to more severe compared to a placebo. So what's more, the review found that saffron supplements were similarly effective at reducing depressive symptoms as antidepressant medication. So I'd rather take the spice than have to get potential adverse side effects. Kava kava, one study published in the Psychopharmacology Journal investigated the effectiveness of kava kava. Researchers found that a water-based version of kava kava produced anti-anxiety, antidepressant activity in people with depression. The researchers also noted the extract brought up no safety concerns in the amount and duration studied, like 250 milligrams of kava kava per day. Rhodiola, again, it's an herb linked to a variety of potential health benefits when taken in supplement form. These include reduced depressive symptoms and improved stress response. It's an adaptogenic herb, which is very, very important. It basically helps your adrenals withstand and recuperate. So the herb may exert antidepressive effects via its ability to enhance nerve cell communication and reduce overactivity of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal cortical axis. That's a mouthful. But this axis is a complex system that regulates your body's stress response. Research suggests overactivity of this hypothalamic adrenal axis can create, problems and associated with depression. There was a study in 57 people with depression found that treatment with 340 milligrams of rhodiola extract per day for 12 weeks led to clinically meaningful reductions in depressive symptoms. So rhodiola treatment may be less effective than some of the antidepressant medications, but has way few side effects. Another study found that the supplement composed of combination of rhodiola and saffron significantly reduced depression and anxiety symptoms in adults with mild to moderate depression after 6 weeks. And the crowning glory is cordyceps that Stanley supplies from his underground source, so to speak. It's a phenomenal modulator, balancing hormones, increasing stamina, oxygenation of blood, and balancing neurotransmitters. I take a tablespoon every morning as a powder. If you want to feel 21 again, this is the best cordyceps because probably 99% of the cordyceps produced is either from the United States or Canada, far, far inferior. And they're not all the same. After you start taking Stanley's cordyceps, and we carry it for our patients and we sell it, it's night and day. You'll feel the difference. Anyway, that's my segment. The notes will be up. At the end, we'll take questions. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to Stanley, who has some pretty interesting notes that he's going to connect the dots on so you'll be able to understand it. So Stanley, take it away.
Okay, that was a wonderful presentation, Dr. Smith.
Thank you.
Wow. I was so glued to you that I have to think about what I'm going to present now. Well, there are lots of different types of depression, but depression is depression, okay? And Dr. Smith talked about lots of ways that how you can recognize it and really how you can address it. Okay. Um, so, how many of you actually think you never had depression? Okay. Every single person had depression and probably have depression right now. The thing is, clinical depression is a little different in that you really need help. Okay. So, we're going to be looking at clinical depression a little bit more rather than just really superficial. Sometimes they call it, they have all kinds of names for it, like seasonal depression. There's bipolar also, depressive psychosis, and so forth and so forth. Atypical depression and so forth. But anyway, as far as we're concerned, depression is a lack of certain nutrients, etc., imbalances we call it, just to make it simple. Okay, so we're going to try to understand the mechanism of depression, and by doing so, I'd like to talk about the trinity of the mind. Okay, if you understand the actual mechanism of the workings of it, then you should be able to control it at least partially and probably get out of the clinical state at least. For us who have training, we actually are able to control any kind of depressive disorder at all. And it doesn't take much to actually do it. Okay, we have 3 levels of the mind: the neo-mammalian mind or complex, which is illogical. That's what you see as the brain, the fatty acids. Okay, then you have the paleo-mammalian complex, which is the emotional brain. It's the limbic system. And what I like to call, there are all kinds of names for this, by the way. The reptilian complex, which is the survival part of your brain, the basal ganglia. Okay. These 3 are very important. They interrelate to each other, but they work separately. All right. The unconscious part of your brain, which is the paleo-mammalian brain, is kind of halfway, but the reptilian brain is in the center. And we are almost perfect creatures, right? The reptilian brain is in the middle of the head. And the reason for that, according to the ancients, according to Qigong practice, is because it needs the most protection. And the most protection is always in the center. Okay? So when you have concussions and so forth, CTE or whatever the case might be, when you have a hard blow to the head, this jelly-like substance actually absorb a lot of the blows. But if it affects the reptilian complex, right, you've had it. Okay, that's pretty well fatal. So once we understand how that works, and by the way, the unconscious part of your mind does 30 trillion activities per second. 30 trillion. Okay. The conscious part of your mind, which is the cerebral cortex, does 1 activity at a time. All right. There's interrelationship, there's biofeedback mechanism, okay, but they work independently of each other. Okay, so basically the information back and forth is only the input and the output only. Okay, once we understand that, then we setting ourselves up to do some form of exercise to actually able to remedy depression. Different regions of the brain is affected by depression. In fact, you can say all parts of the brain is affected by depression. Okay, so we have inputs from your senses, from outside influence. That's what bring that information into your brain. Okay, and that sets like a time and space for you. Okay, that information from your senses that come from outside, okay, goes through most of it, not quite all. Okay, the olfactory actually don't go through there, but the rest of them go through. That information it actually is mixed with the information from your hippocampus, which is the memory part. Okay, and out comes the results. The result is done by the amygdala. Okay, so you have the hippocampus is the memory bank. By the way, all cells in your body have memory. Okay, but the one that influences us the most and what we call the control tower. Okay, just to give you an idea about how memory works. I like to use an analogy of the traffic lights. Okay, you have the main control tower. Okay, from there it could send message to each and every light system, traffic light. But what it does is send just a single message, and from there the that message is taken going through a mini system, right, which is a like a mini computer, and it it actually puts the light on or off. Okay, so the information is not fully controlled by the hippocampus. It just gives that initial information, and each and every cell actually reacts accordingly. Okay, the thalamus now is the hub that where the external influences come through, and from there it distributes the various centers, okay, nuclei. So if you understand that, we have, so what do we have here? Right, we have the amygdala, which basically makes the decision whether to fight or flight. And recently they found out that that has to do with happiness and positive and negative reactions, okay? The hippocampus have to do with the memory, and we are memory. Everything we do, our behavior, even the way we sit and stand is all memory. So we are literally just memory. Okay, and that's how we react, that's how we respond to stuff, and that's how we behave. All right, so the outside information or the exogenous influence comes in, and it mixes with the memory, and outcomes in the amygdala, and outcomes in a result. Okay, that result start cascading through the hypothalamus, and then you have all the that information cascades down. Okay, so that's basically how that works. All right, we found out that when you have especially what do you call it, more sedentary type of disorder, okay, you have a volumetric abnormality. That means the volume of your amygdala actually goes down. Okay, also current findings actually shows that the volumetric capacity of the hippocampus also goes down, especially when you're more on the sedative side. All right. Also, people who are in a depressive state can also lash out. So now it becomes kind of the opposite, where you become more aggressive. Okay, but most of the time, people are more sedentary and just wants to sleep and so forth, and wants to stay away from crowds. Okay, so looking at that, the main parts of the brain that we look at is the amygdala. Okay, that's what I call it, the decision maker. The hippocampus, which is the memory bank. The thalamus, which is the hub that distributes the outside information to various nuclei. The hypothalamus, which takes that information from the amygdala and sends that information cascading down the body. Okay, and lastly, the medulla oblongata. Okay, that actually, the vagus nerve originates from the medulla oblongata and is connected to every single internal organs and multiple connections too. So it has to do with what do you call it, the autonomic system. Okay, so it has to do with sympathetic and parasympathetic responses. All right, so this actually controls your whole body. So it's very important that we look at the medulla oblongata too also. All right, so this is the way that we know that it actually works, and works quite well, and works effectively. And the reason why I'm saying so, we look at results. Okay, we always look at results. And a lot of times I kind of look at see what's happening at this time. Okay, any scientists and so put out different studies and right? I also also use the ancient system. Okay, you can call that the ancient science, really, from the Qigong masters, and I blend the two together, and we come up with an effective way of treating people. Okay, so it turns out that there are two stages of therapy to make you well. One is the clinical part, actual clinical treatments, right, in a clinic, okay, with severe, when you have severe issues, okay, what we call clinical depression. And this entails several modalities, right? Dr. Smith and Dr. Lodi and myself have ways of doing it, okay? And they all work, and they all work well, okay? After we finish that, then we have counseling. And the counseling is usually very short. The reason why, because most of the work is done during the clinical treatment. So imagine if you have a, I don't know, psychologist, whatever, trying to do counseling from the beginning, when you're incapable of handling yourself, incapable of retaining any information, right? That is really horrifying. Okay, and a lot of people, and this is the reason why that system fails, right? It's because they're not the patient is not capable of handling, right, the situation. Okay, so you have to make them or take them to a level where they can handle the situation, and then you do the counseling. Our counseling is actually, as I mentioned, very short. The reason why, because most of um, the recovery is actually done during the treatment, and everybody's happy that way, and it makes life easy both for the practitioner and the patient. And Dr. Smith spoke about the cyberscan. Okay. Um, does this doctor do? Yes, we all do. All of us do consultation. So yes. Um, so the world is a small place now since the pandemic. All right. So most of us have to go virtually. All right. Although my clinic is so busy, there's a waiting list all the time. But still, going virtually is actually more trendy now. So the cyber scan, just to make some of the people understand what it is, the cyber scan is an instrument, okay? And what we use it for, we actually design a treatment plan, okay? And design it and imprint frequencies, the treatment frequencies themselves. Okay, we imprint that treatment frequencies, and what those frequencies do is continuously, not continually, continuously treat you as long as you wear the card. Okay, and thereby you can actually get recovery fairly quickly. Okay, so we can treat people from any part in the world. We can do it virtually, and that makes this virtual platform makes it easy to do the counseling. Okay, because it's short, and that's why the system is so effective. And we use that a lot, even when people are suicidal. Okay, we do a lot of suicidal cases and people who try multiple times to. Okay, and we are able to recover them. All right, so yeah, it's quite effective. So most of the cases that we do, not only for depression, but most of the cases that we do, and I mean, Dr. Smith have been to my clinic too, right? We're good friends. You've been to my clinic, and you see how it is. They're all serious cases, okay? And over the years, I was trying to figure out why all these simple cases don't come to us, simply because we don't advertise, and it's all referral, okay? 100% referral. And people only refer very serious case to us. And so that's the way it is, and that's how we handle it. Even recently, okay, what can set you off in depression also, and I've done this case just today, okay? There's a lady that came in, and I checked her, and I know, you remember we talked about memory? We're looking at, and this might blow your mind too, okay? Past life memory. So I spoke to her about it. And by the way, the cyber scan can pick that up too. Is that right, Dr. Smith?
Absolutely.
That's right. But anyway, my energies actually picked that up, okay? And then she tells me that she went to a energy worker who I happen to know also, okay? One of the really recognized energy worker. And they told her the same thing. So all the information from our cyber scan, I went and checked the cyber scan, my diagnosis, and the energy worker diagnosis. We all came up with the same thing. Okay, that's how accurate, right, the cyberscan is. And the thing is, any practitioner can learn this, and it's so simple to use. Once you get to use it, it's very, very simple. And the beauty about it, as I say, this time is so trendy. We can treat anybody, anywhere in the world. Okay, but we have so many testimonials on depression alone. Okay,
So,
so it's unbelievable.
so Stanley, you're basically using a combination of the cyberscan and the 9-matrix system. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And again, if somebody comes in to the clinic, I can offer them the cyberscan, which a lot of them do take, or I just treat them physically, and it works. Because why? It's the same treatment. It's the same treatment plan.
Yeah, frequency.
Whether I do it physically or I do it through the cyberscan is actually exactly the same, and you get exactly the same results. Our cyberscan, the way we actually do it, and we had many discussions with Dr. Smith. I had many discussions with Dr. Smith on this. It's actually equivalent to physical treatment. That's how powerful it is. Okay. And when I'm talking about that, one treatment can resolve you from being suicidal. Just one single treatment. Okay, we've done that multiple times. So it's not a hit and miss. Our stuff, and those people who know me, I'm very precise in my in what I do. Okay. The last thing I would like to talk about, which I have a whole 50 minutes to talk about, is Qigong. And that's very important. If you practice Qigong and do it correctly, you wouldn't have depression. In fact, there was did a scan on my brain about a month ago, and they found out that the center of my brain is quite relaxed, and it shows up in the imagery. And I was thinking about 10 minutes before we get on the talk, maybe I should have gotten the image and show you. But it shows exactly, right, not only the functionality of your brain, but also where it's active and where isn't, almost like a functional MRI. Okay, but it works more on what do you call it, a energetic principle. Okay, the dragon brain exercise. These exercises, you need prerequisite to get into them. So I'm just going to talk about it, and hopefully, if it interests you, something that you can work on. Okay. First of all, the dragon brain is addressing the medulla oblongata. And so what that does is regulate information that leaves your brain. Okay, especially the reptilian brain. It regulates that information going down. So guess what? We can control arrhythmia with it. And everything is a biofeedback system. Okay, so the heart could affect your mind, and the mind could affect your heart. All right, so we can, just by getting out of depression and be able to regulate, right, the information that goes to the medulla and cascading down, right, the vagus nerve. Okay, you can control, and we've done this lots of times. Okay, you can actually control heart dysfunction. Okay, we can control there's one lady too that found me from the internet, which is that's very rare. And she comes to me. She says they put a pacemaker in her. I said, okay. But they can't seem to get it right. She still feel like dying. And she feel exactly the same as before they put the pacemaker in. And it hasn't changed. So they get every single person in various hospitals looking at it and try to tune it to make it work for her. And they couldn't do it. So what I did, and this is all the biofeedback system back and forth, okay, from the vagus nerve and, through the medulla and so forth. What I did is synchronize the breath with the heart. One treatment. Okay, she feel on top of the world. So they were looking at it, right, just locally and try to adjust it. Okay, I look at it holistically. This is the reason why our whole system from our head to toe is a whole biofeedback system, and they work in unison with each other. Okay, and they have to synchronize. So that's all I did. I check her lungs, I check her system, I check her lungs, and found out that it wasn't synchronized. And all I did is synchronize it, and she's good.
So Stanley, I would just mention you teach a class online for anyone that may be interested in learning these techniques. So we have your website. They can go to that. And what I like to do is like transition now to Dr. Lodi, because he has some very interesting integrative type of approaches that can round out to what we've been talking about. It's all frequencies, absolutely 100%. Yeah. So Thomas, I know you're relaxed over there in Thailand. God bless you. Hopefully you won't fall asleep.
No, I'm awake here.
So take it away, Thomas.
Okay. All right. Well, I really love what you guys said, because it just confirms that the way I look at things is correct, because I have the greatest respect for both of you. What I want people to understand, and I think we lose sight of this as in general, is that we are ancient biological spiritual creatures living in an artificial synthetic world where food, but really they call it food, I call it near food and poison, is available 24 hours a day, as is light available 24 hours a day. The problem with this is that if you go back to if you look at the migration patterns, it was 70,000 to 100,000 years ago that the Homo sapien migrated out of Africa up around the whole world. That's not enough time to change your physiology. Okay, now our physiology, we happen to be earthlings. We don't know that, we don't believe that, we don't agree with that, and that's why we live in boxes and we drive around the machines and we have relationships with machines, and we no longer, we don't consider ourselves part of nature. In fact, you can look at essays, the greatest essays in the world, man versus nature, right? What's the goal of man? Man is to subdue, harness nature, as if we're not it. That's like my baby finger trying to tell the rest of my hand that it's not part of the hand. Okay, it's an absurdity, because what we are nature. We are an expression of nature. Okay, so and it turns out we're not only nature, but we happen to be located on this planet called Earth. Now, our relationship to this planet Earth is very similar. There's a chronobiology. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of that, but chronobiology is the academic discipline that looks at the relationship of of cycles, right? And well, the cycle that we're probably most, whereas let's say dogs and cats might have estrus. In other words, they'll have a fertility cycle that may be 2 months, 3 months, right? Okay, our basic cycle, our basic relationship with our mother, the Earth, planet Earth, is called circadian, circa, around, diem for day, circadian. Okay. Now the Earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees away from the vertical, okay? And it rotates like that. That's what gives us our seasons, okay? Now, the Earth is also has a rotational velocity, and it's a little over 1,000 miles an hour. It completes one rotation in 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. It makes one rotation. Okay. That relationship, we have that relationship with our Earth. So our biology is reset every 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. Now we have a reset point, and that reset point, so what I'm talking about is sleep. Our relationship to the Earth is so, we've been cut off, and we've lost most of the benefits that we can have. So since we are, even though we don't know we're part of nature, we are absolutely part of nature. So the Western mind, which unfortunately I grew up in the West, but I'm no longer there, as you can see. I don't really like the West too much. But the Western mind would say, what's more important, day or night? It's an absurd question. You ask an Eastern person, they're going to say they're both necessary. That's the symbol of the yin-yang. Okay, so you need to sleep as you need to be awake. You need to eat, and you also need to not eat. Everything is cycles, okay, and that's the way it is. And we have a biological rhythm. Anyway, our sleep cycles, and I'm getting to the point, believe me. Our sleep cycles are such that we arose out of the subequatorial zones. And in the subequatorial zones, the sunset is never later than around 7 p.m. Okay, it varies about an hour and 13 minutes throughout the entire year. All right, it's very different than we're talking about countries up in northern, Canada, New York, North Dakota, Germany, Norway, all those things. They have whole different things, but that's not where humans arose out of. Okay, so we migrated there, and we can adapt. Yeah, we can adapt probably in a spaceship. But I don't think we're going to have what we call optimal functioning of the organism. And what I think optimal functioning of the organism is the only true definition of health. Optimal functioning of the organism. And in order to be an optimally functioning organism, you need to have all of your biological needs met. And when I talk about biology, I'm talking about spiritual as well, because hidden inside of biology is the spirit. It's everywhere. You can't separate it. We separate it, we call it mind, body, and spirit, just to talk about it. But where does the mind end and the spirit begin? And and then you look at Dr. Ngui was talking about with the hypothalamus, the whole limbic system. I mean, that's the interface between the mind and the body, and we know that, right? And it works through the autonomic nervous system, and it works through the pituitary gland and the endocrine system, and it's all working together. So anyway, going to sleep at the right time. And we have 90-minute cycles of sleep. When you go to sleep at the right time, it allows for we have two basic phases of sleep. There's deep sleep, and then there's REM sleep, which is dreaming. Both are necessary, okay? They're both necessary. If you don't dream, they have done studies where they wake people up every time they have their rapid eye movement. They don't let them dream, but they still get 8 hours of sleep. On the second day when they wake them up, the guy's ready to kill them. Okay, you have to dream. Dream is letting off psychological steam. Very, very important. But you also need the deep sleep to restore all the wear and tear of your organs throughout the day. So you go to sleep at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. latest, okay, wherever you live. If you're in Norway, put a mask on, but you do that. And what happens is you now have 2 or 3 cycles of deep sleep where you restore your hypothalamus, you restore your amygdala, you restore your hippocampus, you restore your heart, you restore your immune system, you restore your body. Now that your body's restored, when the hormones start to be produced around midnight, when you're having growth hormone and cortisol and all these things starting to be produced in healthy glands, you're going to have a beautiful symphony of hormones, right? But if you're going to bed 11 p.m. midnight, you're not going to have much restorative sleep because there is a set point somewhere between 12 and 2. Everyone's got it. And at that set point, you go from having a predominantly restorative sleep with a little bit of REM sleep. And after that, you go predominantly REM sleep, which is dreaming, to restorative. So you will have dreamt a lot. So you go to bed at 11 p.m., you wake up at 7 a.m., you're fine. You know, you dreamt a lot, so you're not angry at the world, but you didn't restore everything. You just didn't restore. It's not going to be what it was. So if your goal is to age as quickly as possible, go to bed late. And then if you really want to make sure that you age quicker, eat just before you go to bed. With a fantastic program. So for premature aging. So what I want to talk about is the relationship with, as we know, tryptophan is an amino acid. Tryptophan is necessary. It's an essential amino acid. It means we have to get it in our diet. We can't make it. All right. It's got two basic pathways. It's used to make other proteins, but it's got two basic pathways. One pathway goes down to serotonin and melatonin. The other pathway, called the kynurenine pathway, goes down and make important things like NAD+, which you need in your cells, and other important things. Okay, but the kynurenine pathway also produces neurotoxins. When you're not getting enough sleep, when you're going to bed late, you shunt from the serotonin, melatonin, you turn on the kynurenine pathway, and you have increased neurotoxins in your brain. Okay, known fact. The world has a pandemic called sleep deprivation. The Princess Cruises, you remember that airline, that cruise line, they do really amazing surveys. And I think it was 2000, I forget when it was, but they did a survey and found that 51% of the world is sleep deprived. And in fact, I have the numbers here. So the UK, 63%, Singapore, 62%, Australia, 61%, US, 58%, China and Korea, 53%, Taiwan and Japan, et cetera, et cetera. You know, Indonesia, 34%, Malaysia, 47%. So the world's sleep deprived, which means we got a lot more kynurenine going on. We're not having our restorative cycles. So what's happening now? The other thing too, you've been talking about the relationship between the mind and the gut. And you've also both talked about consciousness is not located in the skull. Our consciousness is the entire body. And if we had they even call the gut our second brain, right? They second brain, because think about it. We have 2.0 kilograms of bacteria in our gut. And our brain is only 1.4 kilograms. And our brain only has 20,000 genes. And the genome on our gut has 20 million genes. So we may be thinking more from here than from there. And they relate. It's a bidirectional relationship, right? And so so what I'm saying is that the relationship, they talk through the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the main conduit. However, they've done studies where they even cut the vagus nerve. And they still, the enteric nervous system in the gut actually has 100 million neurons, and it's another brain. So yeah, and guess what? Melatonin is not only mostly made in the pineal, but it's also made in your finger. It's everywhere. So like you were saying, every cell there's consciousness, every cell there's memory, and that's true. But I mean, I say the main thing is the brain-gut interface, the brain-gut microbiome interface. Now I wanted to talk about real quickly so if you go to bed and you're not getting enough sleep, and you're not restoring your organs and functions, you will not have optimal functioning. And this affects the brain, will affect the organisms that exist in your gut. Okay. Now, how important are they? Without them, we're not alive. And I want everyone to get this new concept. It's only new because we've been fragmented in our Western thinking. We came up with the term many decades ago called symbiosis. Symbiosis is where you have something like another organism that lives on the host, and they have a symbiotic relationship, meaning they're both providing something for each other. Well, now we're going beyond that, and we're calling the human organism with 100 trillion. No, that's only in the gut. There's more, maybe 200-300 trillion organisms in and on us. Okay, and together we are what they're calling a holobiont instead of a symbiont, a holobiont. And we have a holobiosis, okay, because you can't separate it. I can't live without my heart. I can't live without the bacteria. It's the same thing. So why are we calling them them? Why are they them? Because without them, there's no us. So are they not an extension of us? And what we have to understand is that they produce, do you know that 90%, most people aren't aware of this, but 90% of the serotonin, which is the happy hormone, which makes you feel well, when you're taking antidepressants, what are you taking? You're taking serotonin reuptake inhibitors so that you have more serotonin, because the more serotonin, less depressed, happier you'll be. Well, 90% of it is made in our gut, and most of that is made, it's made by the cells lining our gut, but it's also made by bacteria. And in fact, I want to tell you about these couple of very interesting studies here. And this is a pretty cited, quoted, it was called The Neuroactive Potential of the Human Microbiota in Quality of Life and Depression. This was presented in Natural Microbiology in 2019, right? And it was a Flemish project where they had 1,054 people and they had 1,063 control group of people, okay? And they looked at the diagnosis of depression, and then they looked at their stool samples and looked at the microbiomes. And what they found was that there was two bacteria, butyrate-producing bacteria, Facilobacterium and Coprococcus, were consistently associated with higher quality of life indicators, okay? And also, in all people with depression, they found that there was low, what was this? There was two. One is Coprococcus and the other one is, what is it? Dialister. So Dialister and Coprococcus, if they're low, you're depressed. And that's just the way it is. And they even, the study even looked and accounted for people taking antidepressants as well, okay? So now, the other thing they found is that there are many of these bacteria that actually produce GABA. Okay, GABA is a very important neurohormone. They're GABA producing, and they found that if you take them away from an organism, that it will get depressed and have problems. So there was this interesting study where they took rats, they put them on antibiotics, and they changed their behavior. Now they can genetically modify rats, right? So that they are either aggressive and angry, or they are timid and mild and shy, right? And what they did was when they changed their microbiome by giving them antibiotics, they actually changed. The aggressive ones became mild, the mild ones became aggressive. They also took the bacteria out of one, and this was a follow-up study. They took the bacteria out of, or the microbiome. It's not just bacteria. It's 90% bacteria, but it's also archaea, protozoa, viruses. There are other things in our microbiome. But anyway, they took the microbiota out of one organism and they switched it, and they both started to behave. The ones that were aggressive were now shy. The ones that were shy were now aggressive. So it's pretty phenomenal. It's pretty phenomenal. Now, then, and I think you both alluded to this many times, and that is the microbiota and inflammation. So there's the gut, brain, and inflammation. We know that inflammation increases the amounts and imbalance of neurohormones. We know that. Now, I want to talk about what I do with people. My goal in life is to remind people that you're an earthling, and you need to go to bed at 7 p.m. your time. You need to spend time every day outside with your shoes off, 45 minutes, an hour, on the ground, okay? You need to get into nature. And if you live in the inner city and you can't get in nature, get photographs, get pictures, because they've shown that you can actually change brain waves to alpha wave. You can go from beta to alpha by looking at scenes of forests. In Japan, they have 62 trails now, government sanctioned trails that are paid for by their medical insurance, called Shinrin-yoku, where you go on a walk with a guide through the forest. Okay, and they've identified all the biomarkers and the brainwave changes. They treat depression, they treat anxiety, they treat all these different things, including cardiovascular disease, by going into the nature. Okay, we are nature. I mean, okay. So what I'm saying is, go to bed at the right time. Now, eating food, what is the most important thing with bacteria? Okay, let's say you get a lion, and you put a lion in a great jungle, but before you put it in that jungle, you removed all the animals. So it's got all this beautiful foliage and there's no animals. That lion's gonna die. The lion will not eat the plants. And likewise, you put a horse in a zoo with all animals, but no plants, the horse is gonna die because it's not gonna eat the plants. Every species eats what they eat according to instinct. All right, we are not allowed to be instinctual. Our parents make sure of that by the time we're 3, because we need to become good Americans, good Canadians, good Germans, good Chinese, whatever. God forbid you become an Earthling, a good Earthling, right? So we don't want to be Earthlings. So anyway, so we all have these different diets. We all eat different food, but the truth is, you can't get a horse to eat dog food. You can't get a dog to eat horse food, okay? Because they're under the auspices of instinct, which is the divine wisdom of God, of nature, all right? So anyway, the food is what they're now calling prebiotics. Prebiotics, okay? So a prebiotic is defined basically in science as a carbohydrate that we can't digest, that only the bacteria can, and they will eat it. And now they have symbiotics, which is like kimchi. It's like foods that have the probiotic in it and the prebiotic, the stuff that you can't digest, and together you get them in. So we find long-lived people that are happy, running up and down, are eating some sort of fermented vegetable. So I'm trying to squeeze a lot of information into it, but I want to get down to the point that if you're eating food that we were designed for, you will have the environment that allows for healthy bacteria to exist. You can take probiotics all day long, both orally and rectally, but if you're eating, let's say, a fast food diet, they can't survive. They won't survive in there, so they won't proliferate, right? Okay, but on the other hand, if you eat really healthy food that humans were designed to eat, then what happens is the right bacteria show up. They show up. Let's say you bought some fruit and you went up to the 99th floor of a condominium, and then you left for a few days and you came back and there were fruit flies. How did they get there? Elevator? Did they fly? No, they're part of the fruit. Fruit flies. So everything, what I'm trying to say is we are a holobiont. We are not just one genetic structure. And then we also have a relationship with the earth. Its rotation has to do with our cycles and all of that sort of thing. Okay, so if we're not living in that, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're not eating human food, if you're not going to sleep, if you're not moving around, you've got to move around, not exercise for 1 hour and sit all day. That's madness. That's madness. Get up every hour or two and work out vigorously for 8 minutes and then sit back down. Do that, then you're moving all day long. It's more natural. Remember, natural is when your biological needs are being met, you can then and only then achieve optimal function. Okay, and there's no intervention that trumps that. Can we use that word now? That trumps that. All right. And there's no intervention that trumps nature. So that's my story. So what I want you to understand is that at the timing and all that we go to sleep, our microbiota, very, very important. We can act. So now they're actually treating depression by giving GABA-producing bacteria, right? And there's a lot of good studies on this. So very, very interesting. Probiotics are being used to treat depression. However, if you're not eating the right food that those bacteria like, they won't hang around. Okay. Anyway, that's kind of it.
So basically, you're saying if you're out of sync with nature, you're screwed.
You're screwed.
It's that simple. So basically, the excitement is that all three of us are coming from different perspectives, but the bottom common denominator is frequencies. Because if you're eating the right food, the frequency of your body is right, which allows the proper microbiome to function because the frequencies are right. And the hormones are all balanced because the whole frequency is right, and you're in harmony with the earth. The
Exactly.
trouble is, we've gotten so far out in left field that we don't know what nature the hell is. You know, like people think going to the Sheridan is camping.
Right. Because they have plants in the lobby.
Right, except plastic ones.
Yeah. Right. But you know, that's absolutely true. When you're eating food that's from nature, that's what gets incorporated into your cells.
Right.
So now the frequency of your cells is the same as nature. Right, exactly.
And that's what Stanley and I have been speaking about the last few months. The whole universe, the common denominator is frequencies.
That's all it is, frequencies.
It's all frequency. And I can achieve it like with certain nutrients, and Stanley's using his matrix system and the cyberscan. I use the cyberscan, I use light therapy, and I'm sure you use similar things, but ultimately it's a Sunoco racing fuel that you have to put into your body to provide the matrix for everything to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's like trying to sing God Bless America in a vacuum. You know, no one's going to hear it.
Right.
Anyway, do we have any questions? Guess not. Maybe we put everybody to sleep. But how we can take advantage of fecal transplants. Yeah, but you missed the point. You can do the fecal transplants, but if you don't change your diet, it's not going to survive, right, Thomas?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we know that it works for a while. In fact, it's been helpful in cancer. It's been helpful in like in Crohn's disease, other things. It'll work for a while. But if the person goes back to it, it's kind of like the idea. One thing that people always get is that suppose you come to me and you have lung cancer, small cell lung cancer, and you're a cigarette smoker. And so we somehow convince you to quit smoking. You quit smoking, you go through all the treatments, you get better. 9 months later, you start smoking.
Right. You sabotage yourself.
Yeah. So in other words, yeah. In fact, fecal transplants are a very good idea. So if we've got someone in dire straits, it's very, very important. And I think it would help with depression. It helps with a lot of different things. So yeah, they're very good. But again, you must now do your job, and your job is to take care of your new family.
Great.
Basically, all it boils down to, it's simple, right?
Yeah.
Just live naturally. How simple can that be? Just live naturally.
Right.
I should say, walk bare feet on a daily basis, which I am. I'm actually bare feet right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So little things like that you do, they all add up in the end.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, both of you. One of my friends from Canada told me that if you go to like Home Depot or Lowe's and you buy a little, I don't know, 3 feet by 4 feet plastic container that you mix cement in or plaster, and you fill it up with pea gravel, it's stones. And of course, you wash them, make it real clean. And if you walk on there for like 10 minutes with your bare feet, you're stimulating every reflex point in your entire body.
Mm.
So if you can't get out, on the grass or whatever, walk on the stones.
Absolutely.
We do that with 4-inch nails.
Well,
Actually, I do have it. I'm not kidding.
okay.
I have it in my basement. 4-inch nails. You walk on it, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, after you get done screaming.
It's very interesting. A doctor Kobayashi that I work with in Japan, an incredible genius. But anyway, he had a path that he had his patients take, and they would first come to this box which had very large smooth stones, and they would have to do 100 steps. The next one was like medium size, smooth stones, no sharp edges, 100 steps. And the last one, smooth, tiny stones, 100 steps. And he said that rebalanced, and then he had him do other things. He also had two dunking bathtubs. One was extremely hot, one was extremely cold, cold and hot. And so you would do 9 colds and 8 hots. You'd have a 1 minute hourglass, 1 minute hourglass in there. So you would dunk into the cold for 1 minute, turn it over, then go into the hot for 1 minute, and go back and forth. So together, those two things, plus walking on these different pebbles, completely reset the autonomic nervous system. And as you know, we're all in sympathetic overdrive, which is definitely going to wind up with exhausting your neurotransmitters, being depressed, all that sort of thing. So, yeah.
That's a great thing. Sounds good. Do we have any other questions? Real great topic. Veronica, Greg's computer. You can cyberscan remote. Absolutely. I was in Moscow lecturing about 6-7 years ago. I came down with the flu. I had my secretary beam me over, beam me up, Scotty, beam me over the healing frequencies. Within 24 hours, I was 98% cured. Absolutely. It's all about the frequency. 3 months, 40 plus. Yeah, Western traditional medicine is barbaric, absolutely barbaric. They have no concept of physiology, how the body's working, and they just throw darts at people. And if you happen to recover, it's by the grace of God, not by the medicine.
Right, it's in spite of it. Well, the thing is, anybody who's gone to medical school will be able to confirm this. There's not one course on health. They don't know what health is. They only deal with what they call diseases. So if they don't know what health is, they cannot possibly help restore you to health. Okay.
Well,
They don't know what health is.
Yeah, I mean, in the 1930s, John D. Rockefeller hijacked the medical system, and he basically trained these people to be drug salesmen. That's what it's all about.
You know what I tell people? The medical system, it's like a tow truck for cars, right? They pick you up on the roadside, and they went and their mechanics, they actually operate on you. Okay, yeah. We are the guys who tweak you for races. We're the guy who actually make you well, right? They're the guys who look at diseases, as Dr. Lodi says. They don't know about healthcare. We're the one who know about healthcare. So it's actually a very distinctive dividing line. Okay, and yet people would go and ask them about our nutrients, right? Is vitamin D good for you, right? You know what I mean? And if the medical doctor says no, then they don't take it. You see, they're mixing things up. You cannot go to a let's say a body shop guy that does car bodies, right? And ask him about the mechanic question. Okay, he's gonna tell you, why don't you go to the mechanic and ask him about the engine, right? But yet our system doesn't do that. Our medical system, if they cannot help you, they wouldn't offer any help outside of their, their practice, the scope of practice. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that.
So Thomas, if I mix a good probiotic with my Haagen-Dazs ice cream, it's okay, right?
For about 15 minutes, yeah. And then they're going to all starve to death. They'll find nothing to eat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And I grow my own food now, and it's enclosed because I don't want the glyphosate from the rainwater to get on it. And the water that I use is from my whole house water filtered system. So it's as pure as I can get it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I can even eat the caterpillars, and there's good protein.
Yeah. Well, where I live now, I live right like 100 meters from an incredible several kilometer beach. Not many, nobody there. I mean, just some people that live around here. And it's all tropical and it's beautiful and the air is pure. It's really, to be stuck in the middle of this madness, to be stuck somewhere. I mean, I was just blessed to be stuck here. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you have to send us some pictures of the beach and all the foliage so we can put it around our room. See, I'd put clouds behind me because I think I'm in heaven.
Right. I will. I'll send some pictures.
Yeah, seriously.
I
But yeah,
think Dr. Lodi is trying to ask us to come to his place there in Malaysia.
Absolutely. Let's make this the center. Here's a good question. How does one realistically go to bed by 7? You can't just go, if you're going to sleep at midnight, you can't just immediately start to go to bed at 7. You've got to work your way down. But there's something I call sleep hygiene that's very important. And that is, you've got to turn off all electronic equipment 2 hours before you want to go to sleep, because the blue light activates things, and which you don't need. You need blue light from the sun during the day. And in fact, the quality of blue light that you get from the sun can actually improve your melatonin production at night. Okay, so that's very, very important. But before you go to sleep, you have to turn that off 2 hours before, and then disengage from this crazy electronic world. Old school, do what I call is a mind enema. And what a mind enema is you sit down with a pencil and a pad, and you write down all the things you did today, and then all the things you didn't do and you should have done, and all the things you need to do this week. And basically you unload and you think about and you categorize your life, so that when you get into bed, you've already thought about it. You're not saying, God, what am I going to do? You've already figured it out. And after doing this, actually for a week or two, your life really becomes more ordered. But anyway, doing a mind enema. The other thing is, and go gradually, maybe start in 2-hour segments. But the room has got to be completely dark. Wear an eye mask if possible. Put in earplugs if necessary. It's got to be dark and cool. It needs to be cool, not cold, but cool, so that you want to hold the blanket, because humans need to touch. We need to touch and hug. It's very, very important. So, make sure it's cool enough for that, so that you're not uncomfortable. And so you do your mind enema, you turn off all that stuff, and then you take melatonin. I mean, we all, we're not making enough melatonin. Our pineal glands have been hurt without our knowledge, etc. Work your way down. You will get to it. But take the melatonin, take extra. I have everybody with cancer take a minimum of 20 milligrams. There's a doctor, Dr. Schallenberger, puts them on patches of 200 or 300 milligrams so that it's being absorbed all day. It's a phenomenal, amazing immune enhancer, melatonin, which is another reason why you got to go to sleep early. Blind people have less cancer than people who can see, because they're in the dark and they're making melatonin all the time. So,
so interesting question here about the sleeping, and again, it's what's the diet like? What's your toxicity level like? If you don't take the burdens off your organs and the tissues, all the melatonin in the world is not going to make you sleep, because any structural, psychological, or chemical stressor is going to keep your adrenals firing.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And the thing about the hormones to understand is you can't treat them individually, or not treat them. Let's say you can't try to balance one, because they are a symphony. If your adrenals aren't working, your thyroid will never be working, and your ovarian function. It's a symphony. So just like with the symphony, you're going to tune up the woodwind, you're going to tune up the strings, and the brass. You need to tune up the entire thing. So we need to bring it all into harmony. It all comes back to balance. But that's exactly right what Dr. Smith is saying about the diet, the melatonin, taking 5, 10, 15, but of no avail. Well, and then there's different qualities of melatonin. What I take myself personally is I take about 40 milligrams orally, and then I put about 20 milligrams sublingual. The sublingual goes in quickly, and I get a nice result from that. And the reason I take a lot too is because at my age, we don't make a lot. I also do some other things to stimulate my thymus and other things, because my early part of my life wasn't in harmony with nature. So I'm.
Well, to talk about cancer, it's not a disease. It's an adaptation to low oxygen and toxicity. And so, people have this allopathic mentality. Oh, we got to kill the cancer. No, you change the parameters of the body. You repair the cell membrane. You get rest so your body can kick the viruses out of the cell. You alkalize yourself. You sleep soundly. Get rid of the systemic inflammation from the EMFs and everything. And guess what? The cancer cells revert back to the original cells, which are normal. I mean,
because they no longer need to adapt.
Exactly.
You change the environment so they don't have to adapt,
Right.
and they'll gladly go back to doing what they were designed to do.
Right. It's just like the microbiome in your intestines. You change the stuff that it's growing on, they go back to the happy bacteria that are supposed to be there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you can keep shoveling in probiotics, prebiotics, but again, you got to change the terrain. William Frederick Koch, 1920s, spoke about this. If you don't change the terrain, it ain't going to happen.
Exactly. And Olive Lapinas, what you were saying, you're waking up at 11 p.m., which probably means that you have a circadian dysrhythmia, and
right.
these happen quite often. And so what happens is your cortisol probably kicks in around that time, and you're like, oh, it's morning, right? And so it's going to take you a while to adapt. So really, when I work with people, I help them readapt, come back down to earth until finally, ultimately, you're going to bed the way Earth, diurnal. Remember, we're not nocturnal, we're diurnal. We have a diurnal physiology. The diurnal creatures go to bed, right? And you can do it. You can get there, but we have to not just work on melatonin.
Yeah, and just look at the dental component, which is missed by most oncologists. If you have root canal teeth with toxicity, you have infections in the bone where teeth were removed, you have mercury fillings, all these poisons are affecting your adrenal glands, and there's no way you can fall asleep.
No way, no. And listen, Dr. Smith, that's why we need to get, there are no dentists out here in this part of the world that get it. None. I can't find one. It's a big problem for us.
Yeah, because there's too much fluoride and mercury, so they're brain dead.
Right, exactly, right.
Stanley, when we going to Thailand?
Well, pretty soon. We're waiting on this fancy pandemic to be over.
No, that's not going to be over. They're going to keep pushing this agenda because the original time frame was to shut everything down worldwide till 2023, 2025. Trump just, goofed up their schedule by coming out with a vaccine. And even though it's not the best thing in the world, but that, they're going to keep pushing. You're going to have the Delta, you'll have a myriad of other viruses that are coming in, more boogeymen to attack us.
Yeah.
Right.
It's time
so just come here and let's make this the greatest center in the world. And think about it, Asia, Thailand is right below China, next to India, above Southeast Asia, near Japan, Korea. I mean, there are 4.5 billion people around us. So it's really geographically, geopolitically, the heart of Asia, the heart of the world. And so it's a great place to have the healing center, the world's healing center.
So what's the beauty about all this? Is the World Organization of Natural Medicine, right? We are we can have clinics, right? In 23 different countries. That includes your country. It includes a lot of good country. This is the reason why I love this organization, and Dr. Smith is the same. Yeah. And it's about time you join it too.
I got it on my email. I just got to pay the thing, and I'm done.
No, okay.
So I'm ready. Ready.
We're non-political.
I got you.
Well, great. I heard if we take melatonin, our body will start to produce less of the hormone. Is this true?
Well, first of all, understand that we produce less of it as we get older, just like we produce less of all the hormones as we get older. They all start to decline. So aging is a combination of two things. It's the accumulation of toxicities, and as these toxicities accumulate, the different organs and glands become to lose their function. Then the hormones decline, and there you have something called aging. So basically, clean your body out continuously. What I do is I have people fast, either a juice cleanse, which is not a fast, or a water fast, 7 to 10 days, 4 times a year. Okay, do that. Eat 18-6, eat only 6 hours a day, and don't eat 18 hours a day. Just things like that. But with the melatonin, what was the question?
Oh, but will taking melatonin decrease the body's ability to produce it?
Oh yeah, so no, it's true that's how they would do birth control pills. And yes, I'm sure if you took a lot of melatonin, it might do that. But the point is, you're not making enough right now. We're not making enough. We all have some degree of calcified pineal glands, no matter what we're doing, and because we're inundated by,
Poison.
Anyway,
Yeah.
poison. So what I'm saying is that take it. Yeah, it's true. It's the same with growth hormone. But you're right. You're absolutely right. If you take a hormone, any hormone, the body's going to say, "Oh, I don't need to make it because I already have it," and it will shut down the machinery. So, but the point is like when you get older or you have a condition that you're not well, you need to at least take it extra for a while because it is essential for your immune system.
Well, the thing is, if we're also eating, organic raw foods as much as possible, you're taking the precursor so your body can repair itself and produce more.
Yeah. Tryptophan. Yeah. Tryptophan. Remember, tryptophan goes down to serotonin and goes to melatonin. When the light comes on, it's producing serotonin. When the light goes off, it's producing melatonin.
What is letrozole? I've never heard. What kind of drug is that? Letrozole?
Is that letrozole?
Yeah, Letrozole. Can it be replaced with flax seeds? Well, flax seeds are good, but they have a higher level of phytoestrogens than soy. So you got to be careful with too much flax.
What does letrozole? Hormone dependent. Oh, yeah. So what was the question again?
Can you replace letrozole with flax seeds?
Oh, well, yeah. And here, let me see if I can find back. Where did I lose my?
See, that's why I like Brian Peskin's formula of 11-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. It's all plant-based. And the true parent essential oil, black currant seed oil, safflower or sunflower oil, extra coconut, virgin coconut oil. The bottom line is the body can make all the other oils that it needs from the parent oils, the true parent.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't find where you guys are anymore. So
letrozole is for cancer. Well, like I said, cancer is not a disease. So the key in the equation, I just did a consult with a patient from South Africa, okay? And she has a rare form of adrenal cancer. And so they sent me the CT scan. Well, I energetically muscle tested the CT scan, and lo and behold, she had a glyphosate in the cancer tissue. She had mercury and nickel and MMR vaccine trapped in the cancer tissue. So this is how I look at cancer. I'm sure, we all have a different perspective, but, my book talks about remove the splinters and watch the body heal. You have to define what's in the cancer tissue causing the cells to go haywire. You remove those components, with nutrients, or Stanley does it with his non-matrix systems, and you probably do it with, your nutrients and, the good environmental. So we're all coming towards the same thing. You got to remove that irritant so that the cells can go back to normal. Perfect example, I had a patient with lung cancer. The traditional medicine cut the tip of her right lung off. 6 months later, the cancer came back in the left lung. The patient said, I'd rather die than go through the surgery. When I tested the pathology slide, she had cytomegalovirus, mercury, and a pesticide in the cancer tissue. Cytomegalovirus was coming from a root canal tooth. I extracted that. I put her on a nutritional program for the mercury removal and the pesticide. 6 months later, the cancer was gone. Mm-hmm. You have to define the splinter that's irritating the tissue to making it go haywire. You can take letrozole, you can take whatever crazy pharmacologic drug you want. You're just painting on the rust. You're not getting to the core, the root problem. And that's my whole. I think we're all on the same page with that.
Well, I have a couple of people right now The doctors cannot find the cancer, what they call cancer. I treat them only a couple of months each, and in fact, one just about 4 weeks, and the cancer disappeared. What they call cancer, right? So they're trying to look at other ways to put them on an experimental,
Killer
you know,
drugs.
yeah, drugs and so forth, because they couldn't understand why pancreatic cancer can disappear so quickly.
Right. So it must be there. Even if I can't see it, it's there.
Yeah,
Right. That's what they're thinking. Yeah. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Neanderthal mentality. It's unbelievable.
You know, one thing I wanted to say about the phytoestrogens. There's estrogen. There's our bodies produce 3 estrogens: estrone, estradiol, estriol. We have 2 types of estrogen receptors: estrogen receptor alpha and beta. When alpha is stimulated, it stimulates breasts to grow, tumors to grow, and things like that. When beta is stimulated, it does the opposite. Now, estrone and estradiol stimulate the alpha. Estriol, which is the estrogen that predominates during pregnancy, stimulates beta. So someone who is estrogen receptor positive can take estriol, and it not only stimulates beta, it's also so large that it actually blocks alpha, so that even the estrone and estradiol can't get there. It turns out that soy also stimulates ER beta, which is why, because I want you to think about something. When Western-minded scientists come up with conclusions that contradict what you can see with your eyes, you don't question what you can see with your eyes, you question what they're doing. For example, if soy was so dangerous, I want to tell you something about the Japanese population. Before we introduced our Western world diet, breast cancer, prostate cancer, virtually unknown, okay? Now, they have been known for years, look at the data, to live 10 years longer than everyone else. I think 2 years ago, South Korea took over that place. But they're living 10 years longer and they eat soy all day long. So you tell me, how the hell is that bad? It's not. It's not.
Well, maybe the genetic.
In fact, soy. If I told you all the things that were in soy, you would run out and get some. But it's got to be the right kind of soy. The problem with most soy now is it's genetically modified.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's genetically modified. So that's what's screwing us up. Yeah.
That's what so you got to find the right stuff. And why did they genetically modify that particularly? Because it's magic. It's got all the amino acids. In fact, it has all the phospholipids necessary for our membranes. Remember, we're making 20 million new cells per second, and they all need phospholipids. Well, 4 of them are in soy. And then it goes on and on and on. So plus it's a phytoestrogen that binds to ER beta. So it's very, very good. So natto, tempeh, miso soup, all these things are good, even tofu.
Good. Okay. So now we have to look for clean soy. That's the key.
Yeah.
And that's simple. That's simple, actually. The best way to do it is really to go to a single-owned Chinese store. Okay. And my dad used to do it. Okay. What we actually grow is the soya overnight. The soya beans overnight, and it's natural. Once you get it, the natural and not contaminated seeds, you can actually grow it naturally.
So you're going to send them down to us?
Yeah. So that's what my dad used to do that too. Okay.
You go to what? A Chinese store? Like a Chinese
the best
store?
thing to do is to go to that Chinese single-owned store, not these conglomerates, right? But
right.
Simple guy, and just make sure that he gets the pure
soy
stuff, natural stuff for you, not
right.
modified. And you can grow it at home. It's simple. Just go in the internet, you can find out how to grow it. But it's simple. Just add some water. Next morning, you'll see the sprouts shoot out.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good point. Anyway, I think time to wrap it up. I learned a lot, and I think our listeners learned a heck of a lot. And that's what it's all about, is getting this information out there. I know Dr. Lodi does consultations. We had your logo where they can get in touch with you. There it goes. And
What is that?
yeah, that's the one that you sent me earlier. So that's what we put up. So drthomaslodi.com and info.drthomaslodi.com. So please feel free to check with our guests. And Stanley Ngui is also reachable, and he's very friendly. And myself, whatever. We're all trying to get the word out, and that's why we do these things. Because the people are getting slaughtered. Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, and we'll certainly do it again in the not too distant future. And well, it's past 7 o'clock, but whatever. We'll get there.
Time is not important.
I know. Yeah, go to bed relaxed.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I'm glad to know that there's more of you like that. Yeah, well, we're trying real hard. Honest to God. It's like anything else. You have to be spiritual to do this stuff. And unfortunately, most of these practitioners, they only see dollar signs in their eyeballs, and that's what they're chasing. Speak out about COVID-19 vaccine. Stay away from it. Stay away from the vaccines because they're purely experimental. They have glyphene oxide, which is a water-soluble carbon compound that's magnetized, and that causes the blood clotting in your lungs. Those that get the jab, you have a greater chance of throwing blood clots when you're 32,000 feet flying. So it's all a scam, the whole thing.
But it is, and it's not a vaccine, so we can't call it.
It's a gene therapy.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
and also, Dr. Smith and I, we are looking at developing frequencies, which I'm very close to doing it, to actually negate those who actually took it.
That would be fantastic.
Stanley, I'm just wondering if we treat the genetically modified soy with our laser, will we correct the genetic distortions that they've put in? We got to try that.
I'm pretty sure we can.
Okay.
Pretty sure we can. If not, we'll come up with whatever appropriate frequencies to do that.
Yeah. So next week I'm going to be talking about, if you guys want to join in, you're more than happy. 7 superior COVID treatments that are being suppressed and the clinical data that prove it. I mean, the answers are all out there. They had to trash all the natural remedies in order to get emergency authorization approval for the jab. That was the whole agenda. They had to trash it. Anyway, we just keep telling the truth, and God bless you. Thomas, if you want to join me for next week, you're more than welcome. Stanley, same thing.
Okay.
We just want to get the truth out about what the heck's really going on.
Wow. Excellent.
Okay. So if you guys want to join, just send me a little email and we'll put you on the marquee.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I'll be heading off on vacation, so
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Stay well. See you next week.
Thanks.
Take care. God bless.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye now.